Hello everyone, welcome back to another book review. Today is Sir Francis Drake, The Queen's Pirate by Harry Kelsey. I was recommended this book from the Pirate History podcast. They have a book list there of some very good books about various pirates or pirate-related topics, and this one was no different. And I was able to find this one used on either Thrift Books or Abe Books, I don't remember which at this point. But it's an ex-library copy, and those are handy if you can get them because the binding's better and they usually have this cellophane on the cover. And so let's get into it. Starts right off with this excellent map of the world. Don't have many of these from that era, right? This is pretty neat, even though this is inaccurate today. This was wildly accurate for the time. No one had ever had anything remotely like this before that. And this particular copy is from 1998. Okay, and now here are the contents. There's not a whole lot going on here, right? So he has various parts, 4 different parts, and 14 chapters. Now Drake is an interesting character because coming into this, I thought, oh yeah, he's this big naval hero. He helped defeat the Spanish Armada, father of the British Navy, and I'm an American, and this was my view of him. Well, Kelsey breaks down those perhaps inaccurate views of Drake. Now, one of the things that we find about him is a lot of illustrations and maps in this book. Actually excellent. This is one of the best ones I've seen on that. One of the things that we find out about him is he's born in Crowndale, near Tavistock, but he grew up in Plymouth with the Hawkins family, who were his cousins. They were a seafaring family, but the Drake family was fairly ordinary in England at the time, is the sense I got from the author. And one of the things that's important to note is that Drake served at a time when Queen Elizabeth I was on the throne, and privateering was just being figured out. And Drake had a fairly decent relationship with Queen Elizabeth I as far as a professional working relationship. You know, he sailed for her, not necessarily with direct letters of marque to carry out his duties, but they certainly had an unwritten understanding of what he was to do on her behalf. And her being a very good diplomat, figured out how to toe the line between supporting an outright pirate and quietly supporting privateering against Spain. So again, this is the late 1500s here. This is 100 years before Henry Morgan. We just looked at that book the other day, Empire of Blue Water. And this is 100 years before that. But we still have the Spaniards. The Spaniards still have lots of colonies. They developed colonies very early in the Spanish Main, Central and South America. Now, one of the things that's unfortunate about Drake, he got involved in the slave trade very early. Quite early in his career, and that is very disappointing. I don't want to give away everything. So in that sense, he does deserve criticism. Let's keep it in context. Also, slavery, as practiced by Europe and the United States once we still had slaves, once the country was formed, was evil and wrong. The context in which it developed was fully accepted by the heads of state, and that's really unfortunate. So we would actually be surprised if we found that Drake was against it. But he was out to make a lot of money. He's out to make a splash, and he did that with the slave trade, and that's really unfortunate. So for that reason, we should judge him both within his context and against the moral principle that slavery, as we see in the West, is evil. All right. And he had quite the sailing career, right? So one of the greatest events in his career comes up. And I got this wrong in the Empire of Blue Water video. I got a little confused. What Drake did was he sailed from England around Cape Horn and up the west coast of South America and raided Spanish towns. And then, how does he escape? He circumnavigates the world. That was amazing. That was in the Golden Hind. And he was a pirate and also a gentleman. And he received lots of amazing rewards and honors. And he did attempt to help defeat the Spanish Armada. Just, there's a question of whether his role was all that important. Was he as successful as we expect him to be from our impressions of him in history that we got in history class in school or just hearing about him on TV? What does Kelsey find? And I think that's worth looking into. So this book is definitely worth your time. This author did a lot of work. Got some damage there to the spine. This author did a lot of work studying Drake and trying to see whether or not, I did not dog-ear these, by the way. And the author tried to see whether or not the Drake legend holds up to scrutiny. So, very good book. The author clearly doesn't, I don't know if I'd say he has the greatest affection for Drake. And so this can be a bit of a slog at times, because I think for the author it was a bit of a slog at times to read. But can we understand Drake in his context, and can we understand him in the broader sense of the history of especially the West? Can we judge him fairly, both by what he did and should have done, and what he didn't do that he should have done? I think that's a question those are questions we should ask every time we read history. But I recommend this book. I think that Matt from the Pirate History Podcast is right. This is worth reading. And I hope that you either pick up a copy for yourself, either from one of those used bookstores, or find it in your library. All right? Well, that's it for now. Have a good one.